another essay in a fit of being overwhelmed with thought, and I want to share it because, well, why not? I'm just going to read it out loud to you because I cannot, for the life of me, form my sentences at a normal pace without doing so. In fact, I'm reading this right now. Just kidding. Or am I? Yes, I am. Also, I'm doing this outside because my family is really loud, and I'm terrified, kind of, so I'm gonna read this as fast as I can. I love Dead End Paranormal Park. Why? It's inclusive without being weird about it. A lot of media does not do inclusivity while having a cohesive and interesting storyline, as well as this show does. Hats off to Hamish Steele, the author. Of course, we're only in the early stages of cishet white characters not being the default, so any show that is in any way inclusive and does inclusivity even a little bit well will be in the spotlight and praised by minority/queer people. The show definitely isn't quite over yet, obviously, but I and a lot of other people love what it's brought to the table so far. Warning for spoilers. If you haven't seen the show or haven't watched season 2 yet, I do not hold myself back here. Go watch the show on Netflix if you haven't seen it. Now, first off, Barney's character development is realistic, and a lot of trans people could definitely see themselves in him. And his voice actor is actually trans, which is a plus. He has issues with older family members being unaccepting. He's afraid of going to the gym because of his body, and he's perpetually afraid of being himself in front of other people, which is probably definitely something to do with his transness. Him being trans is a major part of his character development. His whole thing in the first season was about him running away from home because he's afraid of having dinner with his grandma, but they don't make that his entire personality. He's a demon hunter, wrestling fanatic, caring dog owner, a time traveler, and a super anxious teen who runs away from all of his problems, not just the gender one. He often thinks he isn't good enough for the people around him. We see that a lot when he literally dies in season 2 episode 8, The Other Side, and goes through the 5 stages of grief. He says things like, "I never saved the day, I don't deserve them." He's got a serious case of thinking up the worst possible scenario. His anxiety and awkwardness and physical inability to just face things head on without help in the first season kind of gets on my nerves, but he does gradually come out of his shell as the series progresses, and his character gets a lot better. I see a lot of myself in him. He's a pretty great, positive, realistic representation for a young trans audience. The development of his and Log's relationship is realistic and gradual, and has its ups and downs, like they should. In episode 5 of season 2, Logs and Barney have the infamous "Who are you texting? You must be wanting to see other people" exchange, and they end up fighting, making assumptions, and being angry with each other. But all is resolved when they apologize to each other, and when they're both calm and collected, Logs tells the truth about the texting being about an audition. I really like this because it shows the audience that being patient and honest are the best things to do in a tangle up with your relationship. That way things become clear and are easier to resolve. All in all, his character development and relationship development are realistic and relatable, and shy away from negative stereotypes. Oh, and I have to say it, of course he has blue hair and pronouns. Moving on to Norma. Her character development starts out with her being afraid of anything social, and ends up with her gaining friends, becoming more comfortable with physical affection, and confessing, and being rejected, and getting over the rejection, and coming out to her Asian mother as bi. She's gone through a lot in the past 2 seasons of the show, all while being autistic. And yes, she is canonically autistic. The creator of the show says so. He based her off his own experiences, and actually got his diagnosis while creating the show, which he said in response to an interview question that you can go and read. Not to imply that these things can't be done by autistic people, but as someone who may or may not be on the spectrum, it does make daily life a lot harder than it should be, or than it would be as a neurotypical person. Showing Norma as the main character dealing with her social anxiety and struggles, making friends that accept her for who she is and respect her boundaries, and engaging in her special interest while fighting demons, which may or may not fall under the super smart autistic person trope, which everyone's pretty divided on, but I think it's okay in this one situation since she doesn't really have a superpower, but that makes her a genius. She's just super into demons. All of that is pretty empowering. It shows that living life normally, however you define normal, is possible for you, and that neurodivergence isn't a hindrance, it's what makes you yourself. They never really mentioned that Norma is on the spectrum in the actual show. Not sure about the books, since I haven't read them, but I will. But in my opinion, neurodivergent representation that doesn't blatantly state it is the best kind. It makes the whole thing feel more natural and a part of her, instead of just being her, unlike shows like Extraordinary Attorney Woo or Atypical that overdo it and make it kinda corny and full of extremely exaggerated tropes. The main characters in these two shows aren't even played by actual autistic people, might I add. These shows are kinda just hard to watch for a lot of people. You know, I'm not saying that Norma's experience is an all-encompassing show of what every single person on the spectrum is like, obviously. Everyone's different. Some people see themselves in her, some won't. I'm just saying that her representation is a step in the right direction, as it's positive while displaying the struggle of an autistic person and doesn't put the huge genius expectations on real-life neurodivergent people. Her being bi isn't really a main focus, but her distress with coming out to her mother is more or less realistic too. Minus her mother being super accepting, because I don't know, I have an Asian mom too, and I'm terrified how it would go down. But hey, not all Asian parents are gonna hate you for being queer. As for Courtney, we still don't know that much about her other than that she's a fallen angel and she somehow lost her memory of ever being an angel in the first place. We don't know how she broke her halo or why her memory's gone, but she's still an interesting character that has a lot going for her. And Bodya, Norma's love interest, is a character we don't really get to know well in the first 2 seasons. Her background isn't really shared much, but I'm hoping that they do tell us more about her in the next season. It should be pretty interesting. The way this show works with the concept of heaven and hell, demons and angels is pretty cool and new. The angels aren't all that good, and the demons aren't all that bad. It's quite a breath of fresh air to see an afterlife system like this. Jeden almost flawlessly tackles themes of being a queer teen, insecurity, anxiety, lots of anxiety, being afraid to be yourself, avoiding the truth, and how speaking up about your feelings and being who you truly are is always better than keeping them inside and not telling anybody because you're afraid. Things happen and we just have to let them. Pain is part of existence and you shouldn't run away from it, because without pain there's no happiness, right? The main thing that I get from this show, though, is that you don't have to fit in. You don't have to pretend to be someone you aren't in order to be loved and have friends. Anyway, that's all. Goodbye.